Hey everybody, it's Ricky from All Sorts of Words, and I belong to a lot of different fandoms. I love video games. I love anime. I love comic books. And I love horror. Now, when I say I love horror, the most common reaction I get is, "Hey, I too love horror movies." To which I respond, "That's not what I said." I do love horror movies to be sure, but it's the feeling of horror.
See, that's what really melts my butter.
I don't want to be spooked. I don't want to be scared. I want that good dread. I want a horror story to reach into my chest and make me feel bad about my childhood. I don't just want killers with knives. I want killers that make me question the very nature of my own existence, drink the last soda in my fridge, and ruin my marriage. I want the kind of horror that sticks with me. The type that makes me open the shower curtain before I go to bed, because I don't want to pee in the middle of the night next to whatever's hiding behind the vinyl. But in my pursuit of that type of pure horror in all the media I've consumed, I've delved too greedily and too deep.
The dwarves delved too greedily and too deep. You know what they awoke in the darkness of Khazad-dûm.
I've heard, watched, and read some truly terrible things that have turned me into kind of a freak among my friends. Everyone close to me knows what I'm into when I talk about horror, and so they send people to me for recommendations and commiseration, not knowing that they're really sending people to a firing squad. And this has caused some interesting tension in my life. Hey, welcome to my party! You're Ricky, right? Our mutual friends Jessica and Gregorio said you're also a bit of a horror fan? Oh, hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, I mean, horror, books, movies, comics, really anything, I'm into it. Sick! I just finished watching the recent Saw movie. Man, those traps are so wild. Yeah, those are pretty gnarly. Yeah, they are. You get it. What's your favorite horror movie is such a boring conversation starter. So instead, I like to ask, what's the most recent horror movie you've seen? I mean, the movies I watch aren't exactly for, mixed company, you know what I mean? Come on, I'm not one of those Netflix plebes. I can handle it. What's it about? Okay, so it's called a Serbian film. And it's about a retired adult film star who gets Cosby'd with horse Viagra and forced to make a snuff film with his own family. Get out. So to alleviate the stress of getting kicked out of every party I get invited to, I've come up with a new system to talk with unfamiliar people about horror. I start by asking what their favorite movie is, and then I use that to create a baseline of how serious can we get in this conversation? How dark are they willing to go? So here's a real example. A friend of mine, Hagen, from Lettuce Comics, was at his local library and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you have any literary recommendations for the spooky season?" And so I asked him the question, what are your favorite horror movies? Give me a baseline, and I can build from that. But having that conversation with him made me realize this would be way more fun if I brought it to the YouTube community. Hey, that's you. So here's the game. This video is only going to be part 1 of 2, and here's how you can play. In the comment section below, tell me what your favorite horror movie, play, poem, song, comic is, or whatever, and what type of media you're looking for. Then in my follow-up video next week, I'll give everybody a custom horror recommendation based off my extensive knowledge of plunging into darkness. And I'm going to give a recommendation for each and every person that participates. This could very well end up being the worst idea I've ever had in how many people reply and how overwhelming that gets, but that's my problem, not yours. So just so you can see what this is going to look like, I'm going to give some recommendations to Hagen based off of the movies that he said. So let's review his text and talk about it. just to be clear, if I get like 100 responses or something, everybody's going to get one recommendation, but like Hagen today is getting 3. You're not getting, that's too many. It's too many. I'm not getting 300 recommendations. I'm not crazy. Anyway, see you on the couch. So the things that stuck out in my memory were Aliens, Hereditary, and he mentioned Silence of the Lambs. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time and talk about 3 books that will really test the limits of fear in those regards. Number 1, Communion, a true story by Whitley Strieber. If you've ever heard of the movie Fire of the Sky, that was remarkably loosely based off of this story. It's not a book of fiction. This is a book about a guy's life who effectively got ruined by either aliens or mental illness, and we don't know which. And the book makes no bones about this. Whitley doesn't know if either A, he's gone completely bonkers, or B, he has legitimately been contacted by aliens from outer space and that they have been systematically abducting him over the course of his entire life. And he even acknowledges in the book that, like, there's no winning in that scenario. His brain is telling him these things happened. So either he's completely bonkers or one of the first people on planet Earth to be consistently contacted by extraterrestrials. And what they do to him is not always fun. Sometimes it's pretty sexual in nature, and it is disturbing. But what makes Whitley's story interesting is the lengths he goes to prove himself wrong. That's something that we're not used to, even in today's political climate, where like someone says, I'm right, I have the right opinion, yada, 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 vote for me. No, this guy goes out of his way constantly to put himself in situations where he's with experts who don't believe him so that he can do everything he can to like make himself crazy. Because like if you're crazy, you can just be crazy in your own head, right? But if you're dealing with aliens consistently coming down to kidnap you whenever they want and conduct experiments over the course of your life, like how do you fight that? You get the impression that he would rather be nuts. And so he gets heads of organizations that do polygraphs. He contacts Ned Lorendi, president of the Society of Professional Investigators and vice president of the Empire State Polygraph Society. He's been a polygraph operator for 25 years. He was paid in the normal course of business before the polygraph was undertaken and was not familiar with me before the test. And then it includes literally the recorded interview in text, obviously, of the things he's asking him, like, did this happen? Are you okay? Are they coming again? And he's like, yep, yep, yep. And he's passing all of it. It's not just the terror of someone getting kidnapped by aliens. It's the terror of your own mind turning against you and the possibility that both could be true. This is a genuinely terrifying read. Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. This is the first appearance of Hannibal Lecter. This was originally published in 1981, so this is experiencing its 43rd anniversary. I actually read it. This is a first print. I read it in the 40th anniversary about 3 years ago. If you liked the Hannibal Lecter character, you can see its origin here. So, have you ever watched a TV show where, like, there's a main cast of characters, everybody's good, and then they add a new character, and that new character goes over like gangbusters, and so they become kind of their own presence? That's effectively what happened to Hannibal Lecter. In this book, Hannibal's a very small piece of the story, okay? The main story is following the killer, and I'm not spoiling the mystery here. It's identified really early on in the book. His name is Francis Dollarhide, and he has a deformity on his face, and he believes that he is becoming a dragon. And so he is tormenting and killing people pretty brutally. The book starts right off the bat with one of the murders that he did, and it's a family, and it's pretty brutal. But what makes this book so entertaining is the killer is not someone that appears at the very end. There's no mask reveal of, haha, I did it and you never suspected me. The killer is very much a main character. And so as the story goes through and we're following the detective who's hunting him and we're following the killer and learning more about him, We're not necessarily sympathizing with him, but we are following him. And I do think that's pretty unique for the time. And so after this, Silence of the Lambs comes second. So most people, because of the popularity of the movie, started with Silence of the Lambs and then learned about Red Dragon later. However, this was the intended order. Now, the previous book does have a correlating movie called Fire in the Sky, and this has two movies. One is called Manhunter and came out in the 80s. And although it is the inferior Red Dragon story, it is pretty sick. The killer himself, when he appears in the movie, is awesome. So, like, just look up the Red Dragon killer from the Manhunter movie and watch the clip if you want to see it that way. However, there is an Edward Norton remake of the movie that came out in the 2000s, and it is excellent. So if you don't have time to finish the book for Halloween and you just want to sit down and watch a good movie, that's a movie option for you as well. Also, the third season of Hannibal, because it's the prequel story of the Hannibal Lecter TV show, it tells that story to end out the TV series. So you have a couple different options of absorbing the tale depending on how much time you have. Last but not least, he mentioned Hereditary. And that's a pretty popular movie now in terms of like the modern Mount Rushmore of horror movies would be something like Get Out, The Babadook, Hereditary, and then I don't know, we can argue over the fourth one. But I wanted to recommend a unique case of exorcism that I really enjoyed. And that is A Good and Happy Child by Justin Evans. This is a story of an adult man reflecting on his past, where when he was a child, he believed he had been possessed. What stuck with me the most about this book is the unique way that possession is portrayed. It's very dreamy and ethereal, and it involves a lot of like floating and lights and a wall of windows. It's very strange. But when you read it and you understand in the context that like this is a possession, it makes sense, but it's wild. I read that section every now and then just as a reminder of like how far in the publishing game you're allowed to go in terms of horror. And like I don't know, it actually comes off kind of cosmic-y the way that the possession takes place, but from that point on it becomes kind of standard fare. However, the boy doesn't know if he is possessed or not, but we're jumping ahead in the future to the same boy's failing marriage, and things are coming to a head. So like in his past, he's stressed out, and could it be externalized as this like acting out of he's possessed? But then in the future, he's going through the stress of a separation and a divorce. So is this triggering him again, or is it just awakening something that's been in him the whole time? I don't want to spoil the ending, but legit, this book is remarkable in that the final sentence of the book, the final sentence and the way it's described, it still sticks with me. And I swear to God, the moment I stop recording, I'm going to open up and read that sentence again, and I will lose sleep tonight. It is frightening. The image that you get, the conclusion of the tale, it will rattle your bones. Okay, that's it. So I'm really excited to do this because YouTube, if nothing else, is a place where people can share their experiences and their expertise. And look, I'm 39 years old and I watch about 150 horror movies a year. I absolutely love horror. I love this genre. I love reading horror. I love horror comics. So please, once again, I don't care if you're subscribed or not. I just want to interact with people. In the comment section, give me your favorite horror, whatever, video game, movie, you decide. And then tell me what medium you'd like a recommendation in, and I will give you a custom recommendation from my own experience. And why I think that's going to be unique is I like to dig a little deeper. I don't necessarily want to recommend things you might have heard of. I like to be a little, off kilter with it and give you something that I think you'll enjoy. So give it a shot. Hopefully I can scare your ass off before Halloween. See you next week.